have a pension liability and you guys have a pension asset, the GFOA recommends that your pension be funded at least 70%. Yours is over 100% funded. The deferred outflows of resources, this relates to kind of like a prepaid pension to TMRS. And then if you go to page 15, your current liabilities were $4.2 million. Your total non-current liabilities were $11,364,462. That included $11 million of long-term debt that's due after next year. Your deferred inflows of resources, this is related to the investments of your TMRS pension. And then you ended the year with a net investment in capital assets of $16.3 million, and then your total net position of $16,875,000. You do have an unrestricted deficit in the governmental funds, and that main reason for that is because you paid for proprietary debt or utility debt. Well, you paid for debt in the governmental activity funds that really were transferred over to your proprietary or utility fund. So I'm going to ask you to turn the page to 18 and 19. This is the balance sheet of all your governmental funds. So it's your general fund, debt service, American Rescue Plan Act, and then your combined special revenue funds that are other non-major governmental funds. The total assets at the end of the year were $7,682,135. You had total liabilities of $2.2 million. And then you had deferred inflows of resources of $548,889. This is basically your uncollected taxes since the city started collecting taxes. That left you with a total fund balance of all funds of $4,918,849. I want to point out in the first column, the third line from the bottom, it says you have an unassigned fund balance of $3,252,573. This represents 7 months of your operating expenditures for the next year. So that's very good. The GFOA recommends 4 to 6, and you have 7. I'm going to ask you to turn way back to the back and on page, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to go over 24 and 25 first. This is your business type activities. And really what I want you to turn to is 26 and 27. So your operating revenues for your proprietary fund are $4,917,278. You actually had operating expenditures of $5,409,000. That left you with an operating loss of $491,794. I do want to point this out because you have a loss here, and so basically your rates aren't high enough to cover all of your expenditures. So I just wanted to point that out, and now I'll ask you to move to the back of the report. This is actually on page 57 and 58. This is your budget to actual for your general fund. So this is typically where you see your budget, or I guess on a monthly basis, you probably see a budget to actual report. And your total revenues at the end of the year were $5,319,584. You budgeted close to $4.7 million. So that left you with a positive variance of $632,765. You saw the biggest positive variance in sales tax. You collected $373,000 more than you actually budgeted. In your expenditures, your total general government, you budgeted 1.5, almost 1.6 million. You spent almost 1.3 million, giving you a positive variance of 288,000. The most positive variance there was in the city manager's department of $242,000. Public safety, you budgeted $2,238,900. You actually spent $1,768,000, so you had a positive variance there at $471,000. In Public Works, you had budgeted $1.1 million. You spent $796,000, leaving you with a positive variance of almost $316,000. Your Culture and Recreation, you had budgeted $876,000, and you actually spent $839,000, so you ended with a positive variance of $37,000. Overall, you had excess of revenues of $633,000. You had actually budgeted for $1.1 million loss. So after your transfers, you had an actual increase of $595,000 compared to your $1.1 million loss, which gave you a $1.7 million positive variance. I'm going to have you just turn over to page 61 and 62. This is the schedule of TMRS, and there's an outside firm that TMRS hires to do an actuarial study and audit these figures. So this is really an estimate, but if you go to the very last column of 2021, you'll see that the fourth line up is your net pension asset. So you had an asset of $566,975. Again, I went over this in the statement of net position. Typically, you see a liability. You have 107% funded in the net pension plan, TMRS. And if you turn to page 65, this is your schedule of other post-employment benefit liabilities. And I just want to point out that that liability was $186,000. That's probably one that's going to continue to go up as people retire. It's a supplemental death benefit that the city has that pays $7,500 upon death. That's all I was going to go over. As far as the report, I didn't know if you wanted to go over the governance letter.
It's up to the, council, council, on a couple of things, again, as Mayor mentioned, the audit is due at the end of March for our city charter. We came really close to actually getting approved, but we asked the approval of this at our next council meeting. If the council recalls, the ones that have been here for several years, 4 or 5 years, I think we were 4 or 5 years, no, 2 or 3 years behind on audits. This is now getting us correct. Fund balance, I believe, at the end of 2017, the last audit that was done, if I recall, we were sitting at about $1 million fund balance. Again, that's not the only thing you look at, but it is significant, the fact that we now have a $3 million fund balance. So it's looking better, but on that end, we still have to work on some of these things. We recognize, Debbie, I'd like to thank her and her staff, because they did give us some suggestions as far as internal controls, things we have to improve on, and we will be doing that in the months to come, getting better at some of the things we need to make sure to do according to internal control standards. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Britton? I want to recognize again just the great job that she did in responsiveness to the city, so I'm very, very thankful for you and your staff for doing that. And just, council, this is a great tool when we go to our budget, which will start in June, and I would encourage you to study up on that and kind of look at some areas where we need to address. And just real quickly, of course, Debbie is a CPA and I'm a banker, so there's 2 different ways that we look at stuff. Talking about utilities again, I'm sure that's an eye catcher that it reflected a negative $491,000. Look at our depreciation number, which is $800,000. So depreciation is not a expense that you write a check for, but it is a real expense. It is, our equipment does wear out, our pipes are wear out, those kind of things. So it's something we need to address. So that is the catalyst to the reason for that reflective negative in that position, but we'll address that further as we prepare our budget and talk about things there. So anyway, I'm very excited again for this partnership. Appreciate Debbie and her professional and her staff, and Fred, again, thank you, and excited to have a new financial director. Fred, I think we'll acknowledge here in just a moment. That's gonna help us move forward, but with that, council, if there's no other questions, I'll thank you, Debbie, for your time, and we'll address this again shortly. Thank you. Thank you.
I do want to introduce Carl. He actually worked, he was the senior on the project, and he was very good. And then you National Honor Society people and you 4-Hers who are still here. We are very big shortage in CPAs and accountants, so if you're going to school, get your degree in accounting.
My daughter's there already.
Thank you. All right, council, with that, we're gonna move on to item 7E. Discussion on a request from Mr. Rick Ramirez regarding the placement of speed limit sign on South Willow. This is for discussion purposes, no actions required, but we welcome Mr. Ramirez to come and address the council. Say your name, please.
Rick Ramirez.
Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank y'all for allowing me to be here and talk about my request. I live down on the southern part of South Willow Street, working on a block, actually from West Rio all the way to Gilliam Road. For years, we've been up and down, see if we can get that road kind of fixed in a, decent way, but only half of it has been done. The other half is nothing but white dust. But my main concern right now is the traffic going through there, a lot of speeders. And we don't have no speed limit signs. I was requesting if y'all can approve of putting up signs out there, at least. I mean, I know the normal limit is 30 miles, but at least when we go down to 20, because now we have a daycare center in that road. And at one time, when I was getting off the patrol, I met this guy driving like, I know he was doing more than 40 miles an hour through there, but he denied it. But I had no way to prove it. I didn't have a radar, no speed limit sign, so there you go. All I'm asking is if we can try to control the traffic through that road. And if y'all decide or grab my request to put at least the speed limit signs out there. And I guess when I submitted the request, it was.
Well, this is non-action item, but council, we will address this, and city manager will.
What we normally do, council, as y'all know, we do a traffic study, that we've done traffic studies in the past. And so before we actually act on it, we normally will do, I don't know, Councilman Rodriguez have a comment?
Yeah, we brought this up a few years ago, and I don't know if Bobby, you can check into this. I remember signing a paper with Roland Segovia, trying to get a speed, a traffic study done, because we cannot determine the speed of the street. It has to go through a traffic study. And the cop or the chief who's doing it will determine, the speed of that street. But we did put it on the agenda, and I don't know, for whatever reason, we go back and forth with that road not being a city road. So I wanna see if you can look on it, so when we do bring it back to council for approval for the traffic study, is that we're able to put a speed sign, because we tried to do it. But I remember Roland and our request was shut down, because it wasn't considered a city street. That's also the same street that we put somebody else's lights, and we couldn't get lights out there.
No.
Because it wasn't subdivided. So now we go back to that whole subdivision thing, okay? So when we went out there, we tried to request some lights out there, because it was very dark. I think we finally, Roland and I went to AEP, and they put one on.
Yes, they did.
So,
Right
but,
there at the curb,
yes.
and then one like right next to my house.
Yeah, and we couldn't even put up a stop sign there, because we were told by lawyer advice that it wasn't a city road. I think the stop sign was missing for a very long time when you go from Willow and Frio.
Yes.
That stop sign to the right was missing for a very long time. So I don't know if we can go back to look at those minutes and to make sure we look into that. I didn't think there was a problem with putting a speed sign on there, but we were told otherwise, and I remember Roland, right before he passed, he said, we're bringing this back up. And of course, we all got busy and things happened, but now that you're here, I remember that, but it did get knocked down because of that. But if we can go back and look at those minutes, I don't think there would have been a problem, so we can put it back on the agenda as an action item to first start off with that, speed, traffic study, and also have Bobby look into that road as well.
I guess y'all did approve at one time, put like no littering signs out there?
Yeah, or something like that, I
Yeah,
remember that.
That's the only thing.
That's the only thing they allowed us to do.
Okay. Well, thank
It
you
wasn't
very much.
enough.
Thank you very much. As you guys know, Mr. Ramirez spent a life in law enforcement, so thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, we're moving on to item 8. This is 8A. This is a consent action item. Council, we have, and apologies, we have been behind on our minutes on this, and so going forward, we will present minutes from the preceding minutes to get approval, but this is, you have this package, so I had a chance to look at it. I'm gonna call for a motion and second to approve all of these minutes, which will get us up to date. Mr. Secretary, do you have any comments before I ask for a vote?
I do apologize, a lot of these minutes were done, I just never presented them. They were just stuck in our civic clerk system, I just never presented them.
I don't see
do
it as an
apologize.
action item on the
It
agenda.
says,
At the top.
Page 2, page 2, page 2.
consent
Yes, I
agenda.
know, but
Yeah, it's an action item.
all items listed below are action items, so that's right above it. We need to correct that.
Yeah, this by consent, it is an action item.
Yeah, but we need to make sure for record that we say that, because it's showing that the
Yeah.
items below it are action items.
Roger that. As so noted, and as I indicated, this is an action item. We will vote on all these put in conjunction of each other altogether. City Secretary.
Again, a lot of these minutes were already done, they were completed, they were just literally sitting in the system. I expressed my shame to Mr. Reyes that I can't believe I let it slip through the cracks for that long. I do apologize for that, sincerely.
Okay, so, and going forward, council, you'll see the preceding minutes in the agenda for the next, so we'll be able to keep up with that and ensure that they get approved and are posted as well on
Yes, correct.
our webpage. With that, I'll ask for a motion and a second. Motion by Councilwoman Hernandez, second by Councilwoman
I have-
Talamontes. Is there any questions?
I have a question.
Councilwoman
It's
Trevino.
2021 and 2023, is that correct?
There was one, I think from August 10th of 2021. That's one that had been sitting in our civic clerk system that entire time. They had been completed the next day, literally.
Okay, council, is there any other questions?
We also do have the video available as well for all of these
And the council,
minutes.
council, on the video, so you guys are aware, part of what we're, again, we're turning on the mics, and we're asking the council to leave them on simply because we can hear each other fine sometimes here. It's whenever we're shooting video and we're recording that you can't hear on the recordings, and I know sometimes you can't, but those mics will pick up for anybody that's online and also for any time there's a recording, because there's sometimes that a responses are given, they're muffled, and we really can't tell, so it's not like it's just something we need to do on our end to make sure that people can hear what it is that the discussion's about. And sometimes you really can't hear. I've sat through some of the, not through all of them, but I sat through, listened to some of the recordings, and you do have, parts of some of the meetings that are muffled. It's harder to kind of tell what people are saying.
With that, is there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. We have a first and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
I'm gonna abstain because I haven't went over the minutes, so I don't know what's
We
on.
have positive votes with the exception of Councilwoman Trevino who abstained. Motion passes.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I'm gonna ask, is that in 2019 that you're talking about that you and Roland put it on the agenda?
Yeah. He actually put it 2 times back to back. We tried to bring it back because we were trying to get that stop sign on.
I can
At
check my
least.
email, we can check our emails to see what the response was
Yeah.
from Salinas at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can check.
All right, moving on. Again, these are action items. Item 9A discuss and consider ordinance number 2023-0401, allowing for the placement of a 56 by 26, 2023 manufactured home on George Santos' property located at 225 West Bell. The property is legally described as such. I'm gonna ask for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Councilwoman Garza, second by Councilman Yandera. Is there any questions? Is there any questions?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of item 9A, please
Aye.
raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, folks, we have 3 requests for waiver. These individuals, I don't know that we have everybody here for all of these.